In the primordial ooze, there dominated two rectangles, a tiny spaceship, and another tiny spaceship. These simple, playable things were all that was known. Yet from this soupy concoction of utter simplicity, there rose a new paradigm of gaming. Not just an object to be played, but a man named Pac. Over 3 decades since his creation, Pac-Man has become a household name, waka-walking his way towards greatness in a way that nobody could have fathomed. Many chalk this yellow dude's monumental success down to his addicting, challenging gameplay, while others argue it was just an anomaly, a statistical improbability that snowballed from a lucky spark of initial momentum. One fact that is not argued, however, is that he was huge! And still is. Even your grandma who tries to send fruitcake through an unplugged fax machine knows of Pac-Man. But how much does sweet old Edith really know about Pac-Man? How much do you really know about Pac-Man? Behind this circular sensation are ideas that revolutionized the realm of gaming in ways that I didn't think were possible until writing this script. So let us roll back the space-time continuum to an era where video games were taking their first steps out of infancy. A time when computer technology was exploding and Reaganomics had yet to enter the American vocabulary. Before the Power Rangers, and before even Richard Simmons, Pac-Man was preparing to eat his way into the hearts of the world, and leave behind him a story you never knew. Waka waka waka. Hey Chad, can you spot me a quarter for another round of Pac-Man? I spent the last of my coinage on this rad tracksuit. Only if you give me a lift home in your bitchin' car, dude. Of course, dude. I drove here in my DeLorean, 'cause gas is only $1 a gallon. Radical! According to thorough research, this was a typical conversation between two arcade goers in 1980, the year Pac-Man was released. And now when Blake gets his quarter from Chad, let's check out what they see. Stunning. The gameplay needs no explanation, but in case you're Waka Waka ignorant, the objective is to avoid these 4 colorful ghosts while eating all of those yellow pellets. There's also a variety of fruit for your munching that give you extra points, as well as power pellets that make the ghosts vulnerable to Pac-Man's chomping. While this gameplay was innovative at the time and is still fun to this day, it's only one piece of the proverbial revolution pie that changed video games forever. We've covered the gameplay crust. Now let's slop in that delicious apple filling, represented by game design. A lot of food metaphors lately, I know, but you're just gonna have to deal with it. It's only because we here at Treesicle love you and want you to associate our content with delicious food, and boobs, and some man-ass for you ladies. Speaking of which, Pac-Man's innovative game design choices are highlighted quite well by the new demographic that moved into the arcade scene upon his release. A sight entirely foreign to gamers of that era, and sometimes still now. Women. That's right, Pac-Man was the first video game that women actually gave a shit about. And that was no accident. The creator of Pac-Man, Toru Iwatani, admits he purposely designed the yellow dude's debut to be appealing to men and women alike. Of course, he made sure the gameplay was competitive and rewarding, as we've discussed, but he also made sure the game was non-violent, bright and colorful, and perhaps most importantly, he made sure the characters were all adorable. I mean, Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde? With their big eyes, all chasing around a little yellow man thing. I just want to snuggle them all right now. Aside from the awesome gameplay, girls of the 80s loved this aspect of adorability and humanity that Pac-Man brought to the table. What do I mean by humanity? Check out my next point. Unlike previous games of that era, you controlled not just a thing, but a man thing. This was the closest gaming had come to representing a character people could identify with. And this changed everything. Pac-Man was an identity, an icon, a character. Nobody had thought to do this before. It seems so obvious now, but Innovative thinking always seems obvious in hindsight, especially when you take notice of the ridiculous amounts of success it generates. These game design choices started a revolution. For instance, after Pac-Man's release in Japan, the government was forced to mint more 100 yen pieces because so many were sitting idly within Pac-Man arcade consoles. Many grocery stores even cleared out their normal inventory and replaced it with nothing but Pac-Man machines. I'm not making this up, people! Just look at the merchandise! Pac-Man cereal, Pac-Man stickers, Pac-Man shoes, pillowcases, bed sheets, clothing, figurines, toilet seats! Pac-Man was everywhere, and everyone wanted a piece. All these demographics, all these machines appearing in unrelated stores, all this merchandise. Pac-Man was making money in any way he could, selling himself for a premium to anyone willing to buy. Pac-Man was becoming a dirty, filthy, corporate whore. Everyone was banging Pac-Man, including business professionals on their lunch break, that hot girl you went to high school with, that weird guy you went to high school with, those danged kids from across the street, that Indian guy who works at 7-Eleven, that Indian guy who owns the 7-Eleven that other Indian guy works at. Well, he just bought a Pac-Man machine for a store to make money off of, like many store owners at the time. But he was still banging Pac-Man in his own way. Even Nancy Reagan was banging Pac-Man. Just say no? More like... So where do we go from here? First, let's see where we've been. Before Pac-Man, video games were popular within a small demographic, namely young men. But with the introduction of the Waka Waka fella, video games truly reached the public eye for the first time, thanks in part to his unique ability to attract the fairer sex. A feat made possible by several genius game design choices from Toru Iwatani's mind. Pac-Man was also the first real video game character, a likable image that could be printed on anything and sold at a price. With this kind of marketability, Pac-Man stuff was selling like hotcakes. People who knew nothing about gaming were moving into the arcade business in hopes of jumping on this profitable bandwagon. Monumental success like this created a kind of gold rush. Companies and individuals started creating games based off those basic marketing techniques that helped propel Pac-Man to the top. Unfortunately, it takes more than a pretty face to sell a game. I guess he's pretty. Yeah. But since video games were in their infancy, many high-level executives didn't know shit about this medium. You may have heard of E.T. the video game. Well, if you haven't, it's arguably the worst game ever made. It makes Sonic 06 look like... Jesus, I don't know, a pile of shit with a bow on it maybe. Impressively bad, right? But everyone loved the movie E.T., so why wouldn't they all flock to buy the game? Because it's a fucking terrible game, you corporate asshat. And you know what else came out of this era of horrible? Pac-Man for the Atari. That's right, Atari thought Pac-Man would just sell, simply because he was already popular. Slap it on a console and what do you get? Who could have guessed it flopped? And you know what else? E.T. and Pac-Man for the Atari, jokingly referred to as Flickerman, are considered one of the main factors for causing the video game crash of 1983. In case you aren't up to date on your gaming history, the aforementioned gold rush created a market that was so unstable and volatile that these two terrible titles, combined with several other factors, mismanagement at Atari, made the world lose faith in video games almost entirely. Profits from this industry peaked at $3.2 billion in 1983, and by 1985 were down to $100 million, a drop of 97%. Game cartridges were so worthless that thousands of them were buried in the desert. No, I'm not making this up. So what do we gather from all of this? Well, Pac-Man was so innovative that he caused the entire world to fall in love with video games, including demographics who previously had no interest. His gameplay was competitive, unique, addicting, fun. His image was memorable, lovable, adorable. From this idea came the very first video game character. And from Pac-Man's loins came every gaming character you've ever loved. Speaking of which, Pac-Man became somewhat of a marketing whore, getting his image plastered on just about goddamn everything. So much so that the world took note and tried to emulate it, contributing to a worldwide economic crash for gaming as a whole. Of course, Pac-Man's success was far from the only factor that contributed to thousands of cartridges being buried in a desert, but he certainly was a key player, not only through his innovative marketability, but also through his god-awful port to the Atari. He did impress after that, however, with titles like Miss Pac-Man and stuff. He even has an awesome new title today, with a TV show! Which reminds me, I'm sure some of you will be angry I didn't address the story of Pac-Man. And to that I say, you want me to squeeze a story out of this? That's right, you're crazy. You're a crazy person. Pac-Man, a bulldozer of innovative gameplay and marketability that started a revolution. This revolution brought love to arcades and sparked the wide variety of video game characters we know today, with a small side effect of rampant bankruptcy. And that's the story you never knew.
What's up, guys? We hope you liked the video. Come on, man. Come on, I'm trying to do this thing. Alright, so as I was saying, we hope you liked the video. If you want to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all that fun stuff, that'd be great. Seriously, dude, get out of here! Goodness gracious, kids these days. So, if you want to follow us on Facebook, you know, like us on Twitter, all that stuff. Oh god, what is that? Oh god, no! Don't eat me! Ah!